The observation station hung in space. Like a crystal flower, it's transparent. Walls showing the stars beyond, inside. The main chamber, representatives from 12 different alien species sat in a wide circle. They had been arguing for 3 days. Straight, Taeyang stepped through the doorway and stopped. He was a human, and this was his first time seeing so many alien beings in one place. Some looked like insects made of metal, others glowed with soft light from within their bodies. A few had too many arms or eyes in strange places, but Taeyang kept his face calm and walked forward with steady steps. Beside him, Nari carried a small data device. She was shorter than Tiang, with sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. She did not smile or show fear. She simply watched and waited. "The humans have arrived," announced Veeler, the insectoid observer who ran these meetings. His voice came through translator that made it sound like wind through metal tubes. "You requested their presence, now they are here." Large crystalline being named Droma turned several of its faceted eyes toward the humans. Light reflected through its body in rainbow patterns. "We invited them because they are new to the galaxy, fresh perspective perhaps. No stake in our conflicts." Another alien, one that looked like flowing water held in an invisible container, made a bubbling sound. "They are primitives. What can they possibly offer?" Taeyang did not react to the insult. He had been warned that many species saw humans as young and inexperienced. Only 200 years since first contact. Many of these beings had civilizations that were millions of years old. "We are here to help," Taeyang said simply. "Tell us the problem." Veeler gestured with one of his blade-like arms. Through the transparent walls, 2 fleets of warships could be seen in the distance, facing each other across empty space. One fleet was made of dark angular vessels. The other used ships that seem to be grown rather than built like shells or bones. 2 of our member species claim the same territory, Veeler explained. The Koran and the Prill both say their ancestors lived on the worlds below. Both have proof. Both refuse to share. They started shooting at each other yesterday, Droma added. Its voice sounded like music played on glass. "Small fights, only testing each other. But it will grow worse." Nari spoke for the first time. "How long has this dispute existed?" 800 years, said the water being, "and no one has solved it. We have tried everything civilized species try," Veeler said, sounding tired. "Negotiation, mediation, shared governance proposals. The Koran and Prill refuse all solutions. Now they fight." Taeyang looked at the fleets through the window. He could see the dark core and ships moving into attack formations. The bone white Prill vessels were spreading out. In response, neither side looked willing to back down. "What do you want us to do?" he asked. "Find a solution," Droma said. "Or failing that, choose which side deserves the territory. We will enforce your decision." Nari's eyes narrowed. "You want us to pick a winner? Someone must. The council is deadlocked. Perhaps human eyes will see something we cannot." Taeyang and Nari looked at each other. Something silent passed between them. Then Taeyang turned back to the assembled aliens. "We will need to study the situation," he said. "Give us 48 hours." The water being made a sound like laughter. "What can you learn in 2 days that we have not learned in 8 centuries? Perhaps nothing," Taeyang admitted, "but we must try." The council agreed. Taeyang and Nari were given access to all the historical records All the legal documents, all the evidence from both sides. They were given a small room with computers and a window overlooking the gathering fleets. But Nari did not start by reading the documents. Instead, she pulled up completely different information. Ship designs, weapon capabilities, communication frequencies, supply line data, cultural studies of both species. We are not here to solve a legal dispute, Taeyang said quietly, watching her work. No, Nari agreed. They would not have invited humans for that. They have lawyers and diplomats far better than us. They invited us because they think the fighting will get worse. They invited us because they are afraid, Nari corrected, and they want to see what we will do. Through the window, the first shots were being fired. Bright streaks of energy crossed the darkness between the fleets. Ships began to maneuver, some taking hits, others returning fire. It was still small scale, still controlled, but it was definitely war. Now, an alarm sounded in the station. Wheeler's voice came through the speakers. The Koran have escalated. They are demanding the council recognize their claim immediately, or they will destroy the Pill fleet. The Prill responded within minutes. Their own demand, their own threats. Taeyang watched the battle begin to intensify. Other council members were rushing around trying to communicate with both sides, trying to stop the violence. No one was succeeding. They expect us to panic, Nari said, still working at her computer. Her fingers moved quickly across the controls, or to pick a side immediately to stop the bloodshed. We will do neither. No, we will do our job. Over the next hours, while the battle raged and the council grew more desperate, Nari compiled information. She built profiles of both species, their history, their psychology, their values, their fears. She mapped their fleet movements and analyzed their tactics. She studied their biology and their culture and their art. Tiang helped, pulling data from 1,000 different sources. They did not sleep. They barely ate. They worked with the kind of focus that came from training and purpose. By the end of the first day, 3 Koran ships had been destroyed. 5 Pill vessels were damaged and limping away. The council was screaming at both sides to stop. Neither side listened. Wheeler came to the human room. You must do something, he said urgently. This is spiraling out of control. Taeyang looked up from his work. His eyes were calm. We are doing something. We are learning. Learning while beings die. Yes, Taeyang said simply. We need to understand what we are dealing with. Another day, please. Wheeler's insectoid face could not show human expressions, but his body language radiated frustration. You humans are strange. Any other species would be terrified or outraged. You are taking notes. We are doing our job, Nari said without looking up. The second day brought worse fighting. The Koran launched a massive assault. The Prill countered with weapons that bent space itself, crushing 3 Koran ships into tiny points of matter. The council was in chaos. Some members wanted to send their own fleets to forcibly separate the combatants. Others argued about the legal implications. The humans continued their work. When the 48 hours ended, Tiang sent a message to the council. We are ready to present our response. Droma came to their room. Its crystalline body seemed dimmer than before, as if stress had drained its light. Do you have a solution? Decision. We have a response, Taeyang said. Gather the council and make sure both the Korn and Pill commanders are listening. What will you tell them? Taeyang smiled. It was not a happy smile, it was the smile of someone who had just finished a very difficult test and knew they had passed. We will tell them what we have learned, he said, and what that means for everyone involved. Nari closed her computer and stood. She looked at Droma with those sharp, observant eyes. You wanted to see what humans would do in a war situation, she said. Now you will find out. The human ships arrived 12 hours after Taeyang's presentation to the council. They came through the jump point in a formation that made Dama pause and study them carefully. There were only 20 vessels, the alien fleets each numbered over 100, but something about the human ships looked wrong, or rather, looked too right, too prepared. Jinho stood on the bridge of the lead vessel, watching the tactical display. He was the combat engineer for this operation, and he had designed every piece of equipment these ships carried. Nothing was standard, nothing was ordinary. The coroner scanning us, reported a crew member. Let them, Jinho said. They will not understand what they are seeing. Anyway, he was right. The Koran analysis showed human ships with weapons that seemed weak compared to their own, shields that looked outdated, engines that were merely adequate. The Koran commander sent a message to his fleet. The humans are no threat, ignore them. But Mira, working from a communication ship at the back of the human formation, smiled when she intercepted that message. She was a specialist in psychological operations, and that dismissive attitude was exactly what she wanted. They think we are weak, she said to her team. Good, let them keep thinking that. She began broadcasting messages toward both alien fleets, not threats, not warnings, just information. She spoke in the Koran language, using idioms and phrases that only someone who truly understood their culture would know. She spoke about honor and ancestors and the burden of leadership. The Koran commander ignored the first message. The second one made him pause. The third one disturbed him because it quoted from a Koran historical text that was not widely known outside their species. How did the humans know about it? On another channel, Mira's team broadcast similar messages to the Prill. Different language, different culture, different approach, but the same underlying strategy. Show them that humans had studied them, had learned about them, had prepared for them. Jan commanded the human military forces from the flagship. He was younger than many expected for such a position, but he had a gift for seeing patterns in chaos. He watched both alien fleets and calculated their likely moves. The Koran will try to intimidate us first, he said to his staff. They will send a small force to test our response. When they see we are weak, they will ignore us completely. And then asked an officer, then we learn from them. Yun said, every move they make teaches us something. The prediction came true within hours. 3 Corinthian ships broke formation and approached the human fleet. They powered up their weapons in a clear threat display. The human ships did not respond aggressively. They simply adjusted their position slightly, creating a defensive formation that looked cautious and afraid. The Koran ships came closer. They fired warning shots across the human formation, bright beams of energy that could have destroyed the human vessels if they had been aimed directly. Hyen gave a quiet order, return fire. One ship only, aim for their shield generators, but miss by 3 meters. The humans fired back, a single shot that looked like it was trying to hit the Koran ship but was poorly aimed. The beam struck empty space near one of the Koran vessels. The Koran laughed at the poor marksmanship. They sent another message to their fleet. The humans cannot even shoot straight. They are no concern. But back on the human flagship, Nari had arrived to coordinate the overall strategy. She watched the data from that single exchange and nodded with satisfaction. We now know the exact frequency of their shields, she said, the composition of their hull armor, the response time of their weapon systems, and most importantly, we know they underestimate us. Jinho grinned. Good, I can work with that. Over the next day, small skirmishes broke out across the region. The Corinth and Prill continued their war, trading shots and destroying each other's ships. The human fleet stayed at the edges, seemingly trying to avoid the fighting, but they were not avoiding anything. They were observing, learning, testing. Whenever a Koran ship attacked, the humans would send one vessel to engage. That vessel would fight briefly, always appearing to be overwhelmed, always retreating. Sometimes the human ship would take damage. Once a human ship was actually destroyed, the aliens saw defeat. The humans saw data because each engagement taught them something new: how the Koran coordinated their attacks, how the Prill defended their positions, what tactics worked and what failed. The humans were treating every battle as a lesson, not a contest of strength. Hyan gathered his commanders for a briefing after that first day. We have lost one ship and damaged 3 more, he said, but we now understand how both alien species fight, their patterns, their habits, their weaknesses. They fight with honor, Jinho observed. The Koran especially, they announce their attacks. They follow traditional formations. They value direct confrontation. The Prill are more flexible, added another officer, but they are reactive. They wait for the enemy to move first, then respond. Mira showed them the communication intercepts. Both sides think we are weak and foolish. The Koran pity us. The Prill wonder why we are even here. Neither sees us as a real threat. Perfect, Nari said. Let them think that while we continue to learn. On the second day, something changed. The Koran brought in reinforcements, larger ships with heavier weapons. They had decided to end the conflict quickly. With overwhelming force, the Prill detected the new Koran fleet and panicked. They sent a desperate message to the council begging for intervention. The council contacted Taeyang. The situation is deteriorating. What are you doing to stop this? We are studying the situation, Taeyang replied. Calmly studying. The Koran are about to launch a massive attack. Yes, we have anticipated this. In fact, we have prepared for 17 different escalation scenarios. This is scenario number 4. Veeler, listening to the conversation, felt something cold move through his body. You prepared for this before it happened. We prepared for many possibilities, Taeyang said. War is predictable if you understand the participants. We have been modeling both species behavior since we arrived. Koran fleet attacked with fury, 50 ships moving in coordinated waves, their weapons tearing through space toward the Prill positions. It should have been a massacre, but the Prill had been preparing too. They had moved their ships into defensive positions that were surprisingly effective, almost as if someone had advised them on the best locations. The humans had been quietly sending tactical Suggestions to the Prill disguised as general observations. Nothing obvious, nothing that looked like military aid, just helpful information that happened to make the Prill defense much stronger. The Corin attack stalled, their formations broke apart against unexpectedly fierce resistance. They regrouped and tried again using different tactics. Those tactics also failed because the humans had predicted them and advised the Prill. Accordingly, Droma watched all of this from the observation station. Its crystalline mind worked slowly through the implications. The humans are not trying to stop the war, it said too. Controlling it, what do you mean? Look at the patterns. Every time the Corin adapt, the Prill are ready. Every time the Prill change their defense, the Corin's new attack is already anticipated. The humans are managing both sides, keeping them balanced while they paused, while they learn everything about how we fight. Wheeler felt fear for the first time in his long life. Why? What are they learning for? I do not know, but I think we should be very careful about what we have invited into our conflict. On the human flagship, Hayan studied the latest battle reports. We have now observed both species under multiple stress conditions: direct assault, defensive operations, retreat under fire, coordinated fleet actions, individual ship combat. We understand their capabilities and their psychology. Mira added, the Corin grow more aggressive when frustrated, the Prill become more creative when desperate. Both have predictable patterns. Nari compiled everything into a comprehensive analysis. We can now predict with 87% accuracy what both fleets will do in any given situation. Jinho looked up from his engineering schematics. So what happens now? Nari said we show them what humans do when we truly understand our enemy. Hun sent a message to all human ships. End of the learning phase. Prepare for demonstration. Let them see what we can do when we stop holding back. Taeyang received the update at the observation station. He nodded once and turned to face the council. We are ready to proceed to the next phase, he announced. Next phase? Wheeler asked nervously. What next phase? You wanted us to resolve this conflict. Taeyang said, we will. But first we need to show both sides what happens when humans stop observing and start acting. Through the transparent walls, the human fleet began to move. Their formation changed from defensive to something else, something that made Damaz's light dim with recognition and worry. That is an attack formation, Droma whispered, but not one I have ever seen before. It does not follow any known tactical doctrine. No, Taeyang agreed. It follows human doctrine, and you are about to learn what that means. The Corin commander made a fatal mistake. He saw the human ships moving into attack formation, and he laughed. 20 small vessels against his fleet of 50 heavy warships. It would be over in minutes. He ordered his ships to engage the humans and destroy them quickly so he could return to fighting the Prill. His weapons officers locked onto the human vessels and prepared to fire. Then something happened that the commander did not expect. The humans disappeared. Not literally, they were still there on the sensors, but they scattered in 20 different directions at once, moving with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. One moment they were in a tight formation, the next they were spread across thousands of kilometers of space, each ship moving independently, but somehow still coordinated. The Corin Weapons fired at where the humans had been. They hit nothing but empty space. Track them, the commander shouted. Fire again, but the humans were not following any predictable pattern. They were not retreating. They were not circling for another attack. They were doing something the Corran had never seen before. They were everywhere and nowhere at once. Doyen commanded one of the human ships. He was a fleet captain with 15 years of experience, and he had studied the Corinth for 2 days straight. He knew exactly how long it took their weapons to recharge. He knew the blind spots in their sensor coverage. He knew which officers would hesitate and which would act quickly. He used all of that knowledge now. His ship flashed past a Corran vessel so close that the two holes almost touched. As he passed, he fired. Single precise shot. It struck the Corran ship's communications array, destroying it instantly. The ship was not damaged otherwise, but it could no longer talk to the rest of its fleet. Down was already gone before the Corran could respond. Across the battlefield, 19 other human ships were doing the same thing, not destroying the Corran fleet, crippling it. Each human ship targeted a different system: communications, sensors, maneuvering thrusters, weapons, targeting computers. Within 10 minutes, half the Corran fleet was functionally blind and deaf, unable to coordinate with each other or track their targets accurately. The Corran commander stared at his display in shock. His ships were still intact. Their main weapons still worked, but they could not fight effectively because they could not work together. Impossible. He whispered. How did they know exactly where to strike? Nari, watching from the human flagship, could have answered that question. The humans had been studying the Corinth ship designs for days. They knew every system, every weak point, every vulnerability. They had practiced these precise strikes in simulation, a H-100 times before executing them in reality. But the attack was not over. While the Corran struggled to regroup, human ships moved to the next phase. Quan led this operation. He commanded a special team that specialized in operations that most species would consider too risky to attempt. His ship approached a Corran command vessel, not the flagship, but a secondary command ship. Quan did not fire weapons. Instead, his ship latched onto the Corran hull with magnetic clamps, and his team cut through the outer airlock. We are boarding an enemy vessel, one of Velar's observers asked in disbelief. In the middle of a battle, watch, Taeyang said quietly. Quan and his team moved through the Corran ship with practiced efficiency. They wore environment suits that protected them from the Corran atmosphere. They carried weapons but did not use them to kill. Instead, they used stunners that left the Corran crew unconscious but unharmed. Within 15 minutes, they had reached the ship's bridge. They stunned the officers there and accessed the ship's main computer, but they did not sabotage it. They did not steal data. They did not destroy anything. Instead, they left something behind: a small data device connected to the ship's internal network. Then they retreated back to their own vessel and detached, disappearing into space before the stunned Corran began to wake up. When the Corran officers recovered, they found their ship completely intact. Nothing was damaged, nothing was stolen. At first, they thought it had been a failed attack. Then they found the data device. When they accessed it, they discovered files, thousands of files, detailed schematics of every Corran ship in there. Fleet complete profiles of every Corran officer, including personal information. That should have been private analysis of every battle tactic the Corran had ever used, psychological profiles, cultural studies, biological weaknesses, and most terrifying of all, a simple text message. We could have killed all of you. We chose not to. Think about what that means. The Corran commander read that message and felt something he had not felt in decades, true fear, not fear of death in battle, which was honorable, but fear of an enemy that knew everything about his people and had chosen mercy as a demonstration of power. Droma watched all of this from the observation station. Its crystalline body had gone almost completely dark. They could have destroyed that ship, it said. They could have killed everyone aboard. Instead, they left evidence of what they could have done. Why? Veeler asked. Because destroying the ship would have made the Corran angry, Taeyang explained. Making them afraid is more effective, but the Pill were watching too. They saw the humans disable half the Corran fleet with surgical precision. They saw the boarding operation that was more like a ghost story than a battle. And they made a decision that would change everything. They decided to escalate. The Pill had weapons they had not yet used, weapons that twisted space itself, creating gravitational anomalies that could crush ships into tiny points of matter. They had refrained from using these weapons because they were considered borderline violations of Council law. Now desperate and afraid of both the Corran and the humans, the Prill activated these weapons. 3 Corran ships vanished, crushed into nothing by artificial gravity wells. The deaths were instant but horrific. The Council erupted in shock and outrage. The Prill have crossed a line, Veeler declared. They have used prohibited weapons, but Nar's response was immediate and cold. Quan, proceed with countermeasure 7. Confirmed, Quan replied. The human fleet did not hesitate. They did not protest. To the Council, they did not call for the Prill to stop. They simply matched the escalation. Human ships fired kinetic rounds, not energy weapons, simple metal slugs, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. These were old technology, primitive, but at those velocities they carried enormous destructive power. 5 Prill ships were struck. The kinetic rounds punched through their organic hulls like paper. The ships broke apart, spilling atmosphere and crew into space. The Prill fleet recoiled in shock. They had expected the Council to condemn them. They had expected debate and negotiation. They had not expected the humans to instantly retaliate with equal force. Down sent a message to the Pill fleet. It was short and simple. You chose the level of violence. We accepted it. If you escalate again, so will we. The Pill commander understood the implication. The humans were not bound by Council law or galactic conventions. They would fight by whatever rules their enemy established. There was no line they would not cross if their opponent crossed it first. Back on the observation station, several Council members were panicking. The humans are out of control, one shouted. They are matching every escalation without hesitation. No, Droma said slowly. They are in perfect control. That is what makes them terrifying. They escalated the instant the Prill did, not in anger, not in fear, just immediate, calculated response. Nari's voice came over the communication channel. Council should be aware that we have prepared responses for escalation. Levels up to and including planet-wide. Destruction, we have studied both. Species thoroughly, we know what weapons they have, we know what they might use next, and we have countermeasures ready. For all of them, Wheeler felt his insected body go rigid, all of them. How many scenarios have you prepared? For currently we have detailed plans for 847 different conflict scenarios. Nari replied calmly, this includes responses to every weapon system both species possess, as well as predicted adaptations they might make to their tactics. 847. Wheeler repeated, in 2 days you prepared plans for 847 different wars. We prepared most of these plans before we arrived, Nari corrected. Once you told us the basic situation, we modeled the likely trajectories. When we observed both species firsthand, we refined the models. Now we are simply executing the appropriate responses. Drama's light flickered weakly. You are not reacting to this war, you are predicting it, controlling it, we are managing it, Taeyang said. That is what you asked us to do, we asked you to stop it, Wheeler protested. No, you asked us to resolve it, that is different. Stopping a war is temporary, resolving it requires both sides to understand why they cannot win. Hyan's voice joined the conversation from the human flagship. The Koran now know we can their fleet without destroying it. The Prill now know we will match any escalation they attempt. Both sides have learned that humans do not fight by their rules. We fight by rules they establish, then demonstrate we can fight better by those rules than they can. Quan added his own observation. The Koran found our files, they know we could have killed them. Psychological impact is significant. They are now questioning whether continuing this war is wise when humans might decide to stop being merciful. Dallin finished the thought in the pill. Have learned that escalating to forbidden weapons only works if your enemy respects the prohibition. Humans do not. If you use a forbidden weapon against us, we will use it back and we will use it better. Wheeler looked at Taeyang with something like horror. You are teaching them to fear you, yes. Taeyang agreed, because fear of humans is more useful than fear of each other. A common threat can unite enemies, but you are that threat now. For now, once they stop fighting each other, they will realize we never actually wanted to be their enemy, we just needed to be scary enough to make them reconsider their choices. Through the station windows, both alien fleets were pulling back, not retreating in defeat, but withdrawing to reconsider their positions. The human fleet maintained their formation between them, a small force that somehow seemed larger and more dangerous than their numbers suggested. Droma spoke quietly to Wheeler. We invited humans to observe a war. Instead, they became the war. And now, both sides fear humans more than they hate each other. Is that good or bad? Wheeler asked. I do not know yet, Demay admitted, but I know that we have unleashed something we do not fully understand. These humans do not fight like any species I have ever seen. Nari's next words confirmed Droma's fears. Both fleets are requesting negotiation. They want to talk rather than fight. This is expected. We proceed to Phase 4. Phase 4, Wheeler asked weakly. What is Phase 4? Taeyang smiled. It was not a cruel smile, but it was not entirely kind either. Phase 4 is where we show them what humans are truly capable of, not what we have done, what we could do if we wanted 2. That is when they will understand why this war needs to end. The conference room was cold, not because of the temperature, but because of the fear that filled it. Both the Corps commander and the Pill leader sat across from each other, their fleets waiting outside. Between them sat Taeyong with Nari at his side and 2 other humans standing behind them. Hana was a xenobiologist. She looked young and harmless with a gentle face and calm eyes. But the data pad she carried contained information that made both alien leaders uncomfortable. Isao was listed as an ethics officer, a strange title for a military operation. He stood perfectly still, his expression neutral, his presence somehow more disturbing than if he had looked threatening. You asked for negotiation, Taeyong began. We are here to facilitate, but first you need to understand exactly what you are negotiating about. The Corps commander leaned forward, his rigid exoskeleton clicked as he moved. You have shown you can fight. We acknowledge human skill in combat, but this does not resolve our dispute with April. The dispute is irrelevant now, Nari said flatly. Irrelevant. The April leader's voice bubbled with anger, her fluid body rippled with emotion. Our ancestral claim to these worlds is irrelevant compared to extinction. Yes, Taeyong said calmly, that is what we are here to discuss, not who owns the territory, but whether either of you will survive to claim it. The room went silent, even Velar and Droma, observing from the side, felt the weight of those words. Hana stepped forward. She placed her data pad on the table and activated a holographic display. It showed a detailed map of Corran biology, every organ system, every cell type, every genetic sequence. We have analyzed your species completely, Hana said in a soft voice. The Corran physiology is fascinating. Your exoskeleton is strong, but has 3 specific weaknesses. Your respiratory system requires a precise mixture of gases. Your reproduction cycle depends on specific environmental triggers. The Corran commander stared at the display. How did you obtain this information? Our medical data is secured. We observed you, Hana replied. We scanned your ships, analyzed your environmental systems, studied your crew. We built a complete biological profile from external observation alone. We did not need your secured data. We collected our own. She shifted the display. Now it showed Prill biology, the fluid structure of their bodies, the way they maintain cohesion, their unique nervous system. The Prill are equally interesting, Hana continued. Your ability to adapt to different liquid environments is remarkable, but you have limitations, specific temperature ranges, pressure requirements, chemical dependencies. The Prill leader form became very still. You studied us like laboratory specimens. Yes, Hana agreed without apology. We study all potential threats. That is what we do. Issel spoke for the first time. His voice was quiet but somehow carried through the room. We have taken this biological data and analyzed it thoroughly. We have identified 23 different methods to neutralize each of your species. Neutralize, the Corran commander repeated. You mean kill? Killing is one method, EOL said, but there are others. We could engineer a virus that only affects Corran biology. It would spread through your population before you even knew it existed. We could modify your reproductive triggers, making it impossible for you to have offspring. We could introduce subtle changes too. Your atmosphere that would slowly weaken. Your exoskeletons over generations. Hana added to the nightmare. For the Prill, we could create a chemical compound that disrupts your cellular cohesion. Your bodies would simply dissolve, or we could engineer bacteria that alters the liquid environments you need to survive. Or we could introduce a mimetic virus through your communication networks that would fundamentally change how your species thinks and behaves. The two alien leaders sat frozen in horror. This is monstrous, the Prill leader whispered. Yes, Issel agreed, it is. That is the point. Nari pulled up new data. Biological extinction is only one category. We also have methods for cultural destruction. We have analyzed your societies, your values, your belief systems. We know how to turn your own people against each other. We could introduce ideas that would fracture your civilizations from within. We could manipulate your economies until they collapse. We could make your own children reject everything your species stands for. For the Koran, Taeyang said, your honor culture is your strength and your weakness. We could engineer situations where your honor codes contradict each other, forcing your people into impossible choices that would tear your society apart. For the Prill, he continued, your collective consciousness is your advantage, but we could introduce divisions into that consciousness, creating factions that cannot coexist. Your unity would become your downfall. The Koran commander's voice shook. You are describing genocide, cultural annihilation. We are describing possibilities, Taeyang corrected. Things we could do, not things we will do, not things we want to do, but things we are capable of doing if it becomes necessary. Isol brought up a timeline on the display. The virus option for the Koran would require 3 months to develop and deploy, 6 months to achieve total population death. The reproductive manipulation would take 5 years, but would be undetectable. The atmospheric modification would take 30 years, but would be irreversible. Hana showed the Prill projections. Chemical dissolution would work in weeks. Bacterial engineering would take 4 months. Mimetic warfare could begin immediately and would show results within a year. But Issel said, his calm voice somehow more terrible than if he had shouted, we also have conventional options, planet-wide bombardment, complete destruction of your infrastructure, systematic elimination of your leadership, starvation through supply line interdiction. Each method has different timelines and resource requirements. We have calculated all of them. Tiang pulled up a master document. It listed all 23 methods for each species: biological, chemical, conventional, psychological, economic, cultural. Each entry had detailed plans, resource needs, timeline projections, and probability of success. This is insane, the Prill leader said. No one thinks like this. No one plans for such horrors. Humans do, Nari said simply. This is how we survived on our planet. We planned for every possible disaster, every possible war, every possible enemy. We prepared for extinction, and then we prepared to cause it if necessary. It is part of what we are. The Koran commander looked at the humans with new understanding and new fear. You are predators, true predators. Not just physically but mentally. Yes, Taeyang agreed. We are apex predators that evolved not just to hunt food but to hunt each other for thousands of years. Humans fought humans. We became very, very good at it. We learned how to destroy our own species in countless ways. Then we learned to apply that knowledge to any species. Wheeler spoke. From his observation position, his voice was barely audible. Why are you telling them this? Why reveal your capabilities? Because Issel said, we want them to understand something important. Everything we have described, every method of destruction we have detailed, every plan we have made, we have chosen not to use any of it. Hana nodded. We could have deployed a Koran-specific virus the moment we arrived. You would all be dead now and would never have known why. We could have started the Prill dissolution process during our first day of observation, but we did not. We chose mercy, Taeyang said, not because we cannot do these things, but because we can, and we decided not to. That choice, that restraint is what you need to understand. He looked at both alien leaders. You are fighting over territory, over ancestral claims, over pride, but you are fighting each other because you think the stakes are high. Your culture, your honor, your history. Now imagine if the stakes were actually high. Nari said, imagine if you were fighting for survival, not just military survival, but species survival. What would you do? What lines would you cross? We would do whatever necessary, the Koran commander said without hesitation. Exactly, Taeyang said. You would escalate to any level needed. You would use any weapon available. You would sacrifice anything to survive. Isso's voice cut through the room like a blade. Now imagine your enemy was a species that had already prepared for that level of conflict, a species that had plans ready for total extinction warfare, species that could implement those plans faster than you could even understand what was happening. Would you fight that species? Tiang asked, or would you negotiate? The silence stretched for a long time. Both alien leaders stared at the human data, at the 23 methods of extinction, carefully documented and ready to implement. Finally, the Prill leader spoke. You are saying that fighting humans would be suicide? No, Nari corrected. Fighting humans would be extinction. Suicide implies a choice. If you fight us, you would not have time to choose death. We would choose it for you. The Koran commander's exoskeleton seemed to sag. Then what do you want? You have the power to destroy us. Why negotiate at all? Because, Taeyang said, and for the first time his voice held emotion, we do not want to destroy you. We have the capability. We have the plans. We have the will if necessary, but we prefer not to use any of it. Hana closed her data pad. Every method we described is possible, but every method also requires resources and time and effort, and every method would cause suffering. We have the capacity for destruction, but we also have the capacity for restraint. Humans learn, said quietly, that the most powerful weapon is the one you never use, the threat that is never carried out, the capability that exists but remains dormant. Taeyang stood. You asked us to resolve your conflict. Here is the resolution. Stop fighting each other, or we will stop you, not because we want to, but because the galaxy cannot afford species that refuse to control themselves. You would force peace, the Koran commander asked. If necessary, Taeyang replied, we would prefer you choose peace, but we will accept forced peace over continued war. Nari added the final point. You now know what we can do. You know we have the plans ready. You know we have studied you completely. Every time you consider escalating, you will remember this conversation. You will remember the 23 methods. You will remember that humans are watching. And humans are prepared. The meeting ended shortly after. Both alien leaders left to consult with their fleets. Velar and Droma approached the humans. That was psychological warfare. On a scale I have never witnessed, Dema said. Its crystalline body pulsed with dim light. You made them afraid not of death but of extinction. Yes, Taeyang agreed. Fear of death makes warriors brave. Fear of extinction makes species rational. Velar's insectoid form trembled. But would you really do it? Would you really exterminate an entire species? The humans looked at each other. Then Esau answered with terrible honesty. We hope we never have to find out, but yes, if pushed far enough, humans would do it. We have done it before to our own species, multiple times throughout our history. We came close to extinction. Through our own actions, we know how to cause it. We just choose not to unless there is no other option. That choice, Taeyang said, is what makes us human, not the capability for destruction, but the choice to restrain it, and that choice is what should terrify you most of all. The council chamber was full. Every member species had sent representatives. They had come to hear the official report on humanity's intervention in the corporeal conflict. They had come to decide what role humans would have in galactic affairs going forward. The war had ended 3 days after the negotiation. Both the Koran and Pil had signed a peace agreement that split the disputed territory. Neither side was completely happy, but both sides were alive. The conflict that had lasted 800 years was over in less than a week, but the council members were not celebrating. They were afraid. Velar stood at the center of the chamber to present his findings. His insectoid body moved with nervous energy as he activated the holographic displays. I have observed humanity closely during this conflict, he began. My report will detail what I have learned. I warn you that my conclusions are disturbing. The council members shifted uneasily. Several species that had never met humans before looked at the 3 humans standing at the back of the chamber. Taeyang, Nari, and a third human who had just arrived. Minyu was a historian and philosopher. He was older than they. Others with gray in his hair and lines on his face that spoke of deep thought. He had been invited to explain human nature to the council. He stood quietly, waiting his turn to speak. The humans resolved the conflict. Velar continued. This is fact, but the methods they used were unlike anything in our recorded history. They did not appeal to law or tradition. They did not seek compromise. Based on shared values, they did not try to understand both sides and find common ground. Instead, they studied both species as potential enemies. They analyzed every weakness, every vulnerability, every possible method of destruction. They prepared for war at a level that suggests they expect war as the natural state of affairs. A council member from a peaceful herbivore species spoke up. Perhaps they were simply being thorough, preparing for possibilities. I thought that too, Velar admitted. Until I saw the scope of their preparations. They had plans for 847 different scenarios. They had detailed biological, psychological, and cultural warfare strategies ready to deploy. They had calculated timelines for complete extinction of both species. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices. Droma's crystalline form pulsed with agitation. We have all heard the reports, but I think we have not fully understood what they mean. Humans do not just prepare for war, they prepare for total war, complete destruction of the enemy. This is not normal. My species evolved past such thinking millions of years ago, said another council member. We learned that cooperation is more valuable than conflict. We abandon warfare as primitive and counterproductive. All of our species did, Wheeler agreed. That is why we are here in the council. We are the species that evolved beyond war, that built civilizations on principles of cooperation and mutual benefit. He turned to look at the humans, but they did not. Minyu stepped forward. May I speak? The council granted permission. Minyu walked to the center of the chamber, his movements slow and thoughtful. You are correct, he said. Simply, humans did not evolve past war. We evolved through war. That is a critical difference. He activated his own display. It showed Earth. Our planet has harsh environments, multiple climate zones, limited resources in many regions. Early human survival required constant adaptation and competition. Many species face such challenges. Council member pointed out. Yes, Minyu agreed, but humans had a unique problem. Our most dangerous predator was other humans, not always, not everywhere, but often enough that it shaped our evolution. We competed with our own species for resources, for territory, for survival. He showed images from human history, ancient battles, medieval sieges, modern wars. For 10,000 years of recorded history, humans fought constantly. We developed weapons of increasing sophistication. We created strategies and tactics. We built entire philosophies around warfare. Then you learned to stop? Asked the herbivore representative, hopefully. No, Minyu said. We learned to industrialize it. We made war more efficient, more deadly, more total. We fought 2 global wars that killed hundreds of millions. We created weapons that could destroy our entire planet. We came within moments of using them. The council sat in stunned silence. Then what changed? Droma asked. You have not destroyed yourselves. You are here in space, joining galactic civilization. We made a choice, Minyu said. Not all at once, not easily, but gradually. Humans chose to redirect our competitive nature away from warfare and toward other challenges: science, technology, art, exploration. We took the same drive that made us good at war and applied it to building instead of destroying. But you did not forget how to wage war, Wheeler observed. No, Minyu admitted. We did not forget. We cannot forget. It is part of our history, our culture, our identity. Every human child learns about our wars. We study them. We remember them. We analyze what we did and why and how to never do it again. A new human stepped forward. Yuna was young, perhaps the youngest human the council had seen. She looked barely out of adolescence. I am 23 years old, Yuna said. I have never experienced war. My parents have never experienced war. My grandparents have never experienced war. Earth has been at peace for over 2 centuries. Then you do not understand war. A council member said. I understand it completely, Yuna replied. I have studied military history since I was 10 years old. I have read about ancient battles and modern conflicts. I have analyzed strategies and tactics. I can tell you exactly how my ancestors fought, and why they succeeded or failed. Why would you study such things if you have never fought? The council member asked. Because forgetting how to fight is dangerous, Yuna explained. My people learned that the hard way. We remember our capacity for violence, so we never forget why we choose peace. Minyu nodded. That is the key difference between humans and most galactic species. You evolved past war and moved on. You left that chapter of your history behind. You became peaceful species that no longer think about violence. Humans evolved through war and carried it with us. We became a peaceful species that never stops thinking about violence. We are peaceful by choice, not by nature. That choice requires constant reinforcement, constant memory of what we are capable of doing. Nari spoke from her position. When we arrived at this conflict, we did not see it as two species fighting over territory. We saw it as a tactical problem. What would we do if we had to fight both species? How would we win? What would we do if we lost? What if they allied against us? What if one betrayed the other? We think in worst-case scenarios, Taeyang added. Always it is automatic for us. Every human in our fleet was running combat simulations in their head from the moment we arrived. Not because we wanted to fight, but because we always prepare for the possibility. Velar addressed the council. This is what I learned about humans. They are apex predators that domesticated themselves. They are warriors who chose diplomacy. They are a species capable of extinction-level warfare who decided to explore space instead. But they never forgot how to be warriors. They never lost the knowledge of how to destroy. They simply chose to use that knowledge as a threat rather than an action. Droma's light pulsed thoughtfully. So they carry destruction in one hand and peace in the other, and they can switch between them instantly. Faster than instantly. Minyu said humans can do both simultaneously. We can negotiate peace while preparing for war. We can extend friendship while calculating how to defeat you. It is not duplicity, it is how we survived. We hope for the best but prepare for the worst. A council member finally asked the question everyone was thinking. Are we safe with humans in the galaxy? Minyu considered the question carefully. That depends on what you mean by safe. If you mean will humans attack peaceful species without cause, then yes, you are safe. Humans prefer peace. We benefit more from cooperation than conflict. But if you mean will humans defend themselves with total commitment, if attacked, then no, you are not safe. From that, humans will fight if necessary, and we will fight with everything we have. Yuna stepped forward. Again, I represent the new generation of humans. We have grown up in peace. We have never known war, but we are not naive. We study our history. We understand what our species has done and what we are capable of doing. We do not want war. We genuinely prefer peace, but we are not afraid of war either. That lack of fear comes from confidence. We know that if war comes, we will survive it. We have survived worse. That confidence, Velar said, is what makes humans terrifying. Other species fear war because it is alien to them. Now, humans do not fear it because it is familiar. You have lived through it, mastered it, and moved beyond it while keeping all that knowledge ready. Council debated for hours. Some species argued that humans were too dangerous to include in galactic civilization. Others pointed out that humans had resolved the Koran conflict when no one else could. Finally, Droma spoke. Its crystalline form had returned to full brightness, suggesting it had reached a conclusion. I propose a new role for humanity in the council. Droma said. Other species contribute different things. Some provide technology, some offer diplomatic skills, some share resources. Let humans contribute what they are good at. Let them be the species we call when peaceful methods fail, when conflicts escalate beyond our ability to manage, when war threatens to destroy what we have built. You want us to be your warriors? Taeyang asked. No, Dama corrected. We want you to be our reminder of what war means. We have forgotten. We have evolved past that understanding, but war still exists. Conflicts still arise. We need someone who understands both peace and war, who can think like warriors while choosing like diplomats. Veeler added his support. The Koran and Prill feared you. That fear made them stop fighting. Perhaps that is what the galaxy needs, not species that have forgotten violence, but species that remember it so vividly they can make others afraid of it. The council voted. The result was close, but humanity was granted full membership, not as equals in a traditional sense, but as the species others would call. When diplomacy failed and force became necessary. As the meeting ended, a young council member approached Minyu. She was from a species that had evolved from prey animals, small and nervous. I am still afraid of humans, she admitted. After hearing all of this, I understand you better, but I am more frightened, not less. Minyu smiled gently. That is appropriate. You should be afraid of us, not because we will hurt you, but because we could. That fear is healthy. It will keep you cautious, which will keep us cautious, which will keep everyone safe. But I thought fear was bad. Fear of the unknown is bad, Minyu explained. Fear of the understood is wisdom. You understand now what humans are capable of. You know what we choose not to do. That knowledge and the fear that comes with it is the foundation of real peace. Peace based on fear? No. Minyu corrected. Peace based on understanding. You fear us because you understand us. We respect you because we understand ourselves. That mutual understanding, including the uncomfortable parts, is stronger than peace based on ignorance. Tiang joined the conversation. The galaxy has species that forgot how to fight. That is beautiful and worth protecting, but it also means you need someone who remembers not to fight for you, but to help you remember why you choose not to fight. Nari added. Humans will be your memory, your reminder of what you evolved past and why that evolution matters. We will carry the burden of remembering violence so you can enjoy the gift of forgetting it. Yuna had the last word. My generation of humans never knew war, but we study it every day. We remember what our ancestors did. We prepare for what we hope never comes. That is our gift to the galaxy. Not the ability to wage war, but the willingness to carry the knowledge of it so others do not have to. The council member looked at the four humans. You are guardians then, protecting the peace by remembering what breaks it. Yes, Minyu agreed. That is exactly what we are, and that is why the galaxy dreads us, not because we are monsters, but because we know how to be monsters and choose not to be. That choice, renewed every day, is what makes us human. Through the transparent walls of the council chamber, Earth could be seen in the distance. A blue world that looked peaceful from space, but the humans knew its history. They knew the wars fought on its surface, the weapons buried beneath its soil, the memories carried in its people. They knew what they had been, what they could still be, and what they chose to be instead. That choice, that constant choice between destruction and creation, between violence and peace, between what they could do and what they should do, was why the galaxy watched humans advance into war and learned to dread them, not as enemies but as something more complicated, as mirrors reflecting what all species once were, as reminders of what peace costs, as guardians who remembered darkness so others could live in light, and as warriors who won their greatest victory, not by fighting but by choosing not to fight when they had every capability to do so.